Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to episode 58 of Small Business War Stories. And today was a raucous, amazing, fun, wacky episode with the great folks at Montucky Cold Snacks, Jeremy, Gregory, and Chad Zeitner. We sat down, and these guys are awesome. They are in a town called Livingston, Montana, and this is part of the drive I did through the Rockies. And Livingston is pretty close to Bozeman. It's about a 20-30 minute drive or so from Bozeman. And these guys are great. They basically invented a brand that's sort of like, Pabst Blue Ribbon or PBR or Lone Star in Texas or Old Style if you've ever been to Chicago and been to a Cubs game. Or, it's basically a inexpensive, drinkable beer. And they created a brand around Montana. And I don't want to steal the thunder. It's really cool. And actually, I'm writing about them in the upcoming Small Business War Stories book, yet to be titled book that I'm writing with all the lessons that I learned along the way. And at the end, it does get a little weird. We start talking about how long, what was the question? I think is how long would mankind last if Earth went off its axis of the orbit of the sun? I'm sorry, it went off the orbit of the sun. Yeah. So I won't tell you what answers we come up with, but you'll have to listen to the episode. But this episode is brought to you as part of the Soul of America 2 tour by our new partner, FreshBooks. And what FreshBooks does is FreshBooks is accounting software. So if you're running your small business, especially if you're a service provider, you don't have a lot of staff, it's a huge pain to keep track of all the things, all the expenses, all the things you do. It's so much of a pain that actually the folks at FreshBooks calculated that it would take you during 1 year, it would be about 192 hours. So 2 full working days a month that FreshBooks basically saves you by enabling you to do a much better, easier job with handling all of your invoices, with handling all of your taxes, with handling all of the things that are basically a pain about running your small business so you can focus on what it is that you do. You can go to freshbooks.com/war stories, and then you can enter small business war stories in the How Did You Hear About Us section. And that will help us out here with the program at Small Business War Stories. And like every episode of Small Business War Stories, this one is brought to you by Proven. And Proven is a company I started, and we are a hiring tool for small businesses. But we also have a section with amazing resources for you and your small business at blog.proven.com. We have articles about hiring. We have articles. We're coming up with lots of different new topics that will help you run your business better, like we do with this podcast. We come out every single Wednesday with a new, different, interesting story from somebody and what it took for them to get their business going, and we try to extract lessons from that so that you can use them in your business. Without further ado, I'm going to get into one of the wackiest episodes, episode 58. So we've done almost 60 episodes, but this one is really one of the craziest ones I can remember. But these folks are amazing. Jeremy, Gregory, and Chad Zeitner of Montucky Cold Snacks in Livingston, Montana. And we are live here in beautiful Livingston, Montana. And I'm sitting here today with the founders of Montucky Cold Snacks. So I have here Jeremy, Gregory, and Chad Zeitner. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's great to be here. Let's start by cracking. This is going to be my first ever Montucky Cold Snack. Let's start by cracking cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Cheers.
Salud.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well. So I'm here with Muddy Waggers doing the Soul of America tour. And you guys got referred to me by a mutual friend, Chris White, who is the founder of Shinesty in Boulder. And he told me I had to meet you guys. So here we are. And the way he described you guys to me is that you guys were trying to do a a brand of beer that's kind of similar to a like PBR or like Pabst Blue Ribbon or Old Style is, but like focused on an outdoor lifestyle, and then you guys also really focus on community impact. So, what inspired you guys to start this? How did you guys start a beer company?
Well, Chad and I kind of both, went through the motions of life, and I guess from like, when I graduated college, or not college, but high school, I worked like wildland fire for 10 years in Montana, and kind of the whole time I knew it wasn't really what I wanted to do with my life, but it paid the bills, it put me through college, and it kind of gave me this sweet lifestyle, especially when I was in my younger 20s, where I could run all over creation in the wintertime because you work in the summers and then you get the winters off. So anyways, after about 10 years of that, I kind of got to a point where I didn't want to do it anymore, and I just didn't, like, my heart wasn't in it, and I always had kind of known I wanted to either start my own business or, I don't know, go into some kind of marketing job or something, because that was my degree. And I was just like, well, why would I get a job when I could maybe work for myself? And I kind of wanted to do a brewery for a while, so I started writing a plan for a microbrewery and in Bozeman. And late one night, I had a roommate at the time, and I came home. I was like working late at night at the library, and I was writing the plan, and my roommate was like, what are you doing every night? Like, because I was getting home at like 9 every night. And he was like, what are you doing every night? And he's like, you meet some girl or something? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, what are you doing? And I was like, I can't tell you. Like, I'm working on something. Because I didn't want to like say something I was doing and then like it never came to fruition or whatever.
Sure.
And so he kind of kept like riding me about it. And finally I was just like, all right, I'm working on this thing and whatever. And he was like, well, you should talk to Chad. And I'd met Chad a couple times mutually, because through this mutual friend of ours. But literally the next night, him and Chad were having beers, and so I went over and we kind of wound up talking about it, and I told him kind of what my plan was, and we built it from there. Initially, we were going to do like a craft brew house, and this was just going to be like a side kind of component of it.
Sure.
But when we pitched it originally to the banks, Bozeman's a pretty small town, and they were like, well, do you guys realize there's already, I think at the time there's 3 or 4 breweries in town, and they're like, and there's another 3 that are slated to basically open in the next 6 months.
In a town of how many people total?
34,000.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a big ski town. There's a lot of traffic that comes through because there's the park and there's 2 big ski resorts and there's a college, but it just kind of made us like totally pump the brakes. And I was just like, well, what about this one aspect of it that I'd talked about, like with a light beer aspect? And Chad was like, he was already into it, but he was just like, yeah, let's just do that. And so we repitched it as that, and then the banks turned us down again.
And they looked
how much money are you guys looking to raise?
About 1 million to 1.5, somewhere in that range. Just and like the banks looked at 230 something young 30s with no collateral and
no industry experience. I'd been digging dirt and running chainsaws for 10 years, and Chad was an electrical engineer, and they were just like, yeah, we're not going to give you guys $1.5 million to start a light beer company
to compete with Budweiser or
right.
PBR. Like, that's just not
that have
happen.
These huge marketing budgets and a much thinner profit margin than craft beer gets.
Is that right? I didn't know that. So light beer is a thinner profit margin?
Well, we're more on the value side as well. So we're trying to be an affordable alternative.
Yeah.
Kind of an easy drinking day beer. So yeah, our margins are thin, but we're playing the volume game and just having fun doing that.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, they just looked at us as a couple. One of them actually, what was it, Chad?
I'll call this Bill and Ted's
Excellent Beer Adventure. Yeah, when they turned our loan down.
Yeah.
Our loan. I wasn't there for that, but Chad was there for that.
That's annoying, man. Yeah. It just sucks because you want people to take you seriously when you're doing something, and I don't know. That sounds.
Yeah. And so
but it forced us, to kind of look at things from a different angle, and the angle that we wound up looking at it was, well, if they're not going to approve us for a brewery, which, you know, in retrospect was probably a good thing in a lot of ways because it really allowed us to focus on the brand and the branding and the company more. Then how else would we do it? And the way that we did that was we found a contract brewer that would brew it for us. That took all the sunk costs out of essentially building this huge facility and and staffing it and renovating it and filling it full of beer and managing it and all that stuff. It put that all kind of took all that off of it, and we're just managing the brand now.
And the learning curve too.
Yeah,
right.
And the banks got behind us because they realized all the capital was in the beer. You know, worst case scenario, they could sell that at
cost or whatever, and
recoup their loans.
There's somebody out there that would fire sell it, and they could recoup their costs. So that's ultimately the path that we went down. And I mean, I guess kind of going back to a little bit of the ethos of the company, when Chad and I first started, we wanted it to be light, we wanted it to be fun, we wanted to celebrate mountain culture because that's kind of what we live in out here, and outdoor culture. But we also wanted it to give back to the communities that we're in, kind of the way that craft breweries traditionally do. So it's a macro.
It's microbrewery mentality, but with a business model of
awesome.
Macro beer.
Are you guys both from Montana?
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy was born and raised here. His family's got a ranch out in Lodge Gas. I was born in Butte. Grew up mainly in southeastern Idaho. Came back probably 15 years ago or so.
Cool.
So yeah, we have pretty strong roots in there.
What is Montucky something that people say? Is that like a thing, or did you come up with that? What is that?
It's a pretty common nickname, kind of a term of endearment for Montana. It's a younger generation kind of thing where, it gives props to the backwoods, middle of nowhere mentality that is Montana kind of.
Yeah, so it's like Montana meets the South.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's more of like a nod to like the rural areas of Montana, wide open spaces, forests, that sort of thing.
Cool.
Is Montucky. If you get out of like the urban areas, you're kind of in the wide open areas. So
cool. And what about the name, the Cold Snacks? So it's Montucky Cold Snacks. What's the Cold Snacks? What was it?
It's a fun name for a beer.
Cool. Yeah. How did you guys come up with that?
We didn't really. That was a friend of mine that I worked with in fire. That's what he called beer. He was from Georgia, and I always just thought it was genius. And every time he wanted to go get a beer, he would be like, "Hey man, let's go get some Cold Snacks." And I'd be like, "Sweet dude, like, let's do it." And people don't catch it right away. You kind of gotta usually explain it. Some people get it right away, but some people are like, "Well, I don't get it." And then you're like, "Well, it's like a cold snack, or whatever."
No, I think it's brilliant too, and I get it. I was just wondering how it all came about.
No, yeah, and I just thought it was genius, and so when we kind of come up with the name, I was just like, that's what we're doing. We're tacking that onto the end because nobody else is doing it, And that's where it came from.
That's awesome. So you have a contract brewer. Where is your brewer?
Right now we're brewed in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
And you then manage the brand, and you do the distribution as well?
Well, we work with distributors in each market.
Sure.
But we organize the shipping and warehousing and all.
But figure out what markets you're going into and advertising strategy and everything like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool. So before we go into that, let's talk a little bit about the part where you donate part of your profits. Like, why do that, and why is that important to you guys? And then how do you pick where the money goes?
Well, I mean, I think it's important to both Jeremy and I prior to starting a business. Just that community aspect and that giving back, and it's kind of I don't remember who mentioned it or whatever, but like as soon as it came even as a thing, we're like, yeah, we're doing that, and we're putting it on, like in writing that we're giving back, and we kind of just picked a number. 8% sounded good, and
I remember the conversation. It was at Chad's house, and I was just like, well, I want some of it going back to the community, and he's like, yeah, and he's like, well, how much? And I was like, I don't know. I don't know who said 8%, but we're just like, that was literally the first number I think we landed on. And,
okay.
And we're just like, well, sounds good.
Sounds scientific to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it was scientific.
We do way more than 8% right now. It's kind of our main marketing arm. You know, we work with pretty much any nonprofit or charity that contacts us. You know, well, if they're in a market we're currently served in, obviously, but and we're young and nimble and small enough that we can kind of work in a variety of ways with those charities and nonprofits, and can usually find something that works for both of us. And it's just awesome. You meet a lot of cool people, a lot of good causes.
Tell me more about that. So what are some of the ways in which you work with charities?
Yeah, well, we'll work with, you know, pretty much anyone that reaches out to us, but a lot of charities have events already set up, you know, where they're either just providing beer, so we'll work with them to get a single day license to sell the beer, and we'll give them the beer, and they can sell, you know, a cold snack for $2 or $3 and keep all the money. It's a good way for us to leverage a lot more out of the amount we give back.
Right. I mean, you know, initially when we did it, we're like, well, we can give, you know, whatever charity it happens to be. We'll just say the Humane Society, for example, is doing a barbecue fundraiser or something, like a feed on Friday night. You know, we could give them $100 to help out with that, or we could give them $100 worth of beer that they could turn around and sell for, you know, whatever, $3 a pop, and, you know, make $500.
When we're able to cut out,
and they're already staffing it, and go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, we cut out the distributor's markup and the retail markup, so it really kind of, you know, gives them a much higher margin than we'd be able to get.
Yeah, exactly. Donation.
Right. So yeah, we donate it. We donate them. So there's a ton of stuff like that we do. That is, people just reach out all the time. And then like some of the bigger ones that we, you know, around here, we work with some big outdoors ones, like some trails ones in the Bozeman. There's a few different, you know, youth empowerment ones that get kids out skiing or that sort of thing. And then kind of the way we've been kind of wanting to focus it or shift our focus, I guess, is to kind of do more quarterly or maybe every 4-month kind of things, where we focus specifically kind of on one or two, you know, charities in like a given market.
Cool.
And like kind of the reason all that came about is, one, when it's all spread out, it's hard for people to kind of really wrap their minds around, because we're like, well, we do this and we do that, and
it's also hard to manage, right?
Right, it's hard to manage. So we want to kind of, you know, really dial it in and bring, you know, some of the ones that we've had a lot of success with, just doing things year in and year out, bigger events with them, that we don't have to reset it up every year. But also, if we focus on them for like 3 or 4 months at a time, it lets us get that message out for 3 or 4 months at a time, instead of like, hey, next weekend this is going on. And most people don't have, like, it's not out there long enough for people to really process. And the big way we figured that out was, I kind of already knew it was there, because, you know, you just kind of see it after a couple of years. You're like, people are having trouble wrapping their minds around this stuff. But we do a Pride can every year where we replace the mountains with rainbows.
Okay.
And the reason that happened is because we kept getting like requests for this, and we're just like, let's, you know. So I talked to Chad, and Chad's just like, yeah, let's do it. And I was like, we'll take all 8% from that. We'll do a Pride can. We'll just do it for the month of June, which is Pride Month in the United States, and we'll, you know, all the profits from the sales of those cans will go to LGBTQ organizations in the communities that they're sold, right? And like, people, you know, can wrap their minds around that, because you do that you basically have like a whole month leading up to that, and then you have a whole month of sales of that, and that's just 2 months. But, you know, people really, you know, get that, you know. And you know, once we started doing that, I was like, okay, we need to start focusing, you know, shifting our focus in the charity kind of more not tangible.
Yeah, it's kind of like focus the light into a laser and just kind of
exactly.
You build that relationship with the charity or the nonprofit, and you can kind of get into, you know, we do custom shirts and hats that we give them, and they can sell, that have their logo on them.
Right.
And just, you know, like, we're able to get a lot more creative, you know, figure out what they're doing and what we're doing, and kind of how those two work together.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of the way we are focusing right now, or starting to phase that in. But
We
it's
also,
all
yeah,
it's
we
all
also have the online option where, you know, it doesn't get a ton of traction, but people can go on, they can select their state that they're in, and then it propagates a whole list of charities. They can reach out and add charities to that,
Cool.
and they can donate $1 of our money directly to that charity.
Wow. So you guys do. So you guys both do in kind, so product donations and cash donations as well.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
do cash donations too, because sometimes you'll get like an event going on at a bar, and it, for an array of reasons I won't bore you with, because it would take whatever amount of time to explain. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
So we'll just be like, you know, if you guys have like a week or 2 weeks or a night or whatever, we'll just honor 25 cents per can goes to the charity, or 50 cents per can, and then we usually try to get the bar to match our donation.
Yeah.
And then, so, you know, over the course of 2 weeks, whatever builds up, and then we send it to the charity. So we do a lot of cash that way as well. So it's a little bit of both.
And then the Pride, you know, like we do a check for that as well, you know, because that's just 8% of profits.
Right.
And so then theoretically the rest of the 8% we try and do on our website. But like I said, like, you know, people don't like to take the time to go online and select their charity or whatever.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we try and just kind of do it in as many different ways as possible. So
Cool. How long have you guys been around? When did you start?
5 years come November.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so almost
As
5
far
years.
as actually having product in the market. So.
That's awesome. So walk me through the playbook for this. So when you guys, you know, created the brand, it strikes me as something that is along the lines of like Old Style in Chicago, or like PBR nationwide, or Kokanee when you go to Canada, or Lone Star in Texas is another example, right? So how did you think about the plan to, you know, market this, you know, kind of easy drinking beer with like a cool angle with like the outdoor and the charity thing, and then as you roll that plan out, what has it been like to go into more markets and like let people know you exist?
I think a lot of it was fairly organic. I mean, both Jeremy and I are pretty avid outdoors people. You know, we ski a lot and see, you know, what people are drinking up on the ski hill. And here in Montana, it's a lot of PBR. And we thought, like, if we gave them a local alternative, you know, one with a, you know, donation side, a socially conscious side, that it would be an easy conversion.
Yeah. Has it been?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Yeah.
I think people that understand us and get what we're about, like, immediately love us.
Yep.
There's others that, you know, just don't quite understand the mentality or the process, or there's a lot of people in Montana that just, you know, they're Budweiser people or they're Coors people, and they're not going to change.
Really, even though like
it's just hard. I think we found it easier in some of the bigger cities, you know, because they're more used to change and willing to change, and they seek that information out. Whereas Montana, we're just kind of like, we do, you know, like, I don't know, you just go to a bar and you order what you're used to.
Montana also has, I mean, I grew up in eastern Montana, and there's some serious, you know, loyalty to things like Coors out there, because a lot of people out there grow barley for Coors, and that's what pays their paycheck.
Oh, interesting.
So there's stuff like that plays into it too, which, you know, I get, you know, and we knew that was going to be part of it.
I mean, in 5 years, 5 years is awesome, because that's a milestone where it's, as a small business, it's difficult to get there.
Right.
But it's also really young. You guys have to give yourself a lot of credit for where you are now. I mean, how many states are you in right now?
We're eight now.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, congratulations.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been a fun ride for sure, and I think the longer we're around and the more people understand, you know, and get to know us, that changes. You know, I think people.
The more random podcasters from Austin you have here telling your story.
Exactly. But yeah, we're loving what we're doing, and I think people, like I said, people that understand us and know about us, you know, feel the same way. So
tell me more about how you approach your marketing. So you guys have a Instagram strategy, right? So you have a following there. What are some of the things you do there to attract followers? And then also, I didn't know about this until now, but right behind you, I see there's an art competition, which is this amazing gas station T-shirt design poster you have there.
Yeah.
So, how do you engage your customers and your audience to get them to help you market?
I mean, when we started it, we went through a lot of rigmarole, kind of figuring out what we wanted the look and the feel of the can to be, and the company to be, and we had kind of an outline. We had like a general outline of what it wanted to be. We wanted it to be outdoorsy and we wanted it to be fun. That isn't easily, that's not necessarily easy to translate into an actual tangible plan. So I think it kind of started with us designing a can that we felt like kind of was fun in that.
Yeah, this is awesome.
And so my goal when we decided when we were designing the can was to create something that kind of almost sold itself and that popped out. And
Did you design this?
Yes and no.
Okay.
We worked really closely with a designer in Bozeman, and it's a lot of him and it's a lot of me, and so
of course.
I think it's
iterative
a lot of
process.
both, but
Yeah.
but
Jeremy
we wanted
kinda
some.
put the base out there, and then he made it look.
Yeah,
No,
at
this
the
is
time
badass.
I would have never been able to make it look as nice as it looks, but I came up with basically the premise, and he made it look pretty more or less.
Sweet.
So, anyways, but yeah, we wanted something that was kind of retro and that was kind of throwback, and to just kind of own that kind of 70s, 80s feel a little bit,
Yeah.
and just kind of.
But it also has it has an interesting, like the fonts have the Western inspiration.
Right.
Both, like all three fonts on it have a Western inspiration.
Right.
And the shape of the mountains, and the kind of like, is that a moon or a sun or both behind the mountain, which is kind of cool.
Right.
And the horse, obviously.
Yeah, so we just kind of started it there. We knew that the name was kind of catchy, and then we added all kinds of fun stuff on there, like "Don't Be a Jerk" is our recycling thing, and "Drinking with a Cause" is kind of
Where does it say "Don't be a jerk"?
right down here in the
By the
corner.
recycling.
Oh, got it.
But kind of once we started that, then we just kind of worked our way into Instagram and Facebook and stuff, and just kind of supported that basically with images of outdoor culture, and really kind of like finding the right people that were already that were into our brand and that got our brand, because that's what's the magic of social media, is like you can find these people that like get it, and they take all these crazy pictures, and you can kind of connect with them, and you can kind of like figure out, okay, well, what should we do next, or what should we do more? So there's a lot of kind of communication that we do with our customers on that level to kind of keep coming up with stuff.
Well, I think
And,
we
like-
still, and I say we, meaning Jeremy and Kayla, but I think we still respond to pretty much every Instagram or Facebook post personally.
Yeah.
So it's
Like at some point that'll probably overrun us, but we still try to like
Yeah, 'cause
every
you guys
single.
have a lot of followers. How many followers do you have on Instagram?
I mean, we have a lot, but we don't have a crazy amount. We have, I think, 8,500 now or something. So it's not like 100,000 or something.
Yeah. Well,
But-
just give it a couple years.
But
Sure. Thank you.
we get for like the gas station stuff, it's just kind of talking to people, and it was like, oh yeah, that'd be a friggin' awesome idea, and you're just like, yeah, of course that'd be an awesome idea. And so we kind of start figuring out, and we're looking for ways to engage that excitement that's already around our brand, and to just further engage it.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you like, if our customers like X, Y, and Z, and they're already kind of in that scene, how can we get them to interact with us? And so let's do an art
That is awesome.
competition.
Who won that contest?
A girl out of Colorado, I don't remember her name offhand, but she made a super sweet shirt. It's actually right over here. I'd grab it and show it to you.
Which one is it?
It's Chad can go grab it.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That does look like a gas station T-shirt. That is awesome.
Yeah, and so
That is
you know, doing stuff like that is cool. We
Yeah.
want to, we're doing some ski design stuff, so a lot of kind of art stuff like that, and then just working with bands, and just finding the right fit, and working with our reps, different ambassadors, different professionals in like the
Cool,
ski
man.
industry
Well,
and
I'll
stuff.
spread your gospel down in Austin. So.
cool. We appreciate it.
How long you guys been in Texas for?
About a year and a half.
About a year and a half,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. And how can people find you? So how do you decide, or how do you figure out what outlets you can set? Does that depend on what distributor you're working with? Or?
It depends a lot on the distributor. You know, we're with a lot of smaller distributors, so you know, in markets, Texas in particular, we're not super widespread, but people can go online. We have a locations finder.
Okay.
And then
We're
yeah,
at
I mean,
Buzzmill.
yeah, we're at Buzzmill.
You know where that is?
No. What is
You don't
that?
know where Buzzmill is?
No.
Man, it's kind of over past Congress over there. If you go east of Congress, there's I don't know. It's not East Austin.
What kind of place is it?
It's a bar.
Oh, a bar. Okay. There's a ton of bars in Austin. So.
I know. It's just like a super cool one.
Okay.
It's
I'll
one
have
of
to
our
check it
bigger
out.
one. We're there, and we're in a bunch of bars on like Lamar.
Yeah.
And then we're in a bunch of bars like out on.
I live
like
in
East.
South Lamar.
What's that?
I live in the South Lamar area.
Okay. I'm trying to think if I know where that is.
You might be in Black Sheep.
Yeah, we're in Black Sheep.
Yeah, I live a block away from Black Sheep.
Okay, yeah, we just stayed over there, and we're like in Gibson Street Pub and
Yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
over there.
I'm
Yeah.
literally a block away. It's behind ABGB, right?
Yeah. So like we have a bunch of stuff like in there, and then we have a bunch of stuff like in East Austin,
Yeah.
like Yellow Jacket and Shangri-La and all that kind of
Oh
cool
yeah,
stuff
Shangri-La
out there.
is a perfect place for this.
So we do really well in a
They
lot
have
of those
my favorite
places.
photo booths in Austin.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's got dude, that place is awesome.
That place is awesome.
The
yeah.
backyard is just cool.
It's not
I
a
was
place
there
that
for-
encourages sobriety, but that's fine.
I was there for mud bug season this spring or whatever.
Oh, they had a crawfish boil?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I did that. That was kind of weird.
You've never done a crawfish boil before?
No, but I went with some dude who was from Texas, and
Yeah.
he was just like everything that I wouldn't eat. He was like, "You done with that?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Like
And
the
then-
head?
Yeah,
You
and
gotta
then
eat
he
the
would
head.
just like take the head and
Oh.
just like suck it all
Oh,
out.
I liked you until you just said that. You know, you don't need the head. You gotta eat the head.
I didn't.
You're from
It's
Montana,
a little
man.
much for
You're
me,
from
man.
Montana.
It's like salty, fishy. I'm like, It was okay.
During the last Soul of America tour, I went through New Orleans and I crashed a wedding where they had a crawfish boil as a thing.
That's awesome.
It was fun.
Yeah, we were there for like crawfish week or whatever, you know, and there's like a whole week, and so like half the places we went to,
It must have been like what, like the spring, late spring or something like
Yeah.
Yeah.
When like I don't know,
Okay.
March or May,
Yeah.
April or May, somewhere
Sure.
in there.
Yeah.
It all blends together. I don't know,
that.
but yeah, it was cool.
That's
Anyways, yeah. So we're doing all right down there, but yeah, there's a locations finder, and you know, it's all dependent on on how much what your distributor's capabilities kind of are.
Yep.
And we kind of like to work with smaller distributors, just because we feel like they're a little more aggressive in getting us into places. But there's a fine line with that because they're also limited by their ability to get you into every place. You know, some of the bigger distributors, they can get you into every place, but they've got all the big names, and they might not necessarily really care whether you succeed or not.
Yeah.
And so they'll just kind of take you so that you're not taken from them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they can
But,
control
I mean,
you.
success builds on itself. So, you start selling, you sell more, and then other people see it. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I mean, when I first started this podcast, it was very hard for me to get interviews. And now, all of a sudden,
Really?
like, yeah, initially, some people were like, oh, I haven't heard of this. And so the first 7 or 8 guests were people whom I knew in Austin.
Gotcha.
There are a few of them more iconic locations like Home Slice Pizza, Antone's, Blues Club. And then that kind of started building. And then now for this tour, it's been a lot easier because people see like, oh, yeah, there's been all these great people on the show. And, yeah, I'd love to do it.
Right.
But, yeah, it's the same idea, man.
When's your book supposed to come out, or do you have any idea?
2018.
Cool.
2018. So we're doing as I was mentioning before, between the 2 Soul of America tours I've done, it's going to be about 7,000 miles and about 50 to 60 interviews.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I just want to share with people, stories like yours, like how people are starting businesses in the Soul of America. America.
America.
Yeah. Well, and a big part of it is how much less divided people are than people believe we are. So the media sells clicks, the media sells views, and they do that by selling division, by selling outrage. And the reality is that when I travel around, people get along and like each other a hell of a lot more. I mean, there's definitely problems, right? So there's racial problems, there's like class problems, like it's not perfect, but my perception of the net division that exists in this country is a lot less than what you would perceive in the media, because the media just loves selling this outrage shit.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay,
but
tell me, why don't let's hear it.
I mean, just look at what's going on in the NFL right now. It's like, seems like a pretty simple thing.
But that's the media.
But it's not. I mean,
Well,
they're
it
not
is.
fixing it. Like everybody's still on the fence about, well, do we let this happen or not? And it's like, well, it's about one thing, and you can't really talk to people about the one thing. About
But
black.
you can. Like, I mean, there's people I talk to that don't agree with the kneeling, or, you know, like, but they're not. I mean, like, those are there's two subsets that are, I think, you know, that are very polar opposite, but there's a big chunk in the middle that get pulled into it that aren't really there.
The great majority of people are not in the 3 to 5% on either side. They're the ones that make the noise.
Well, I don't know.
In my experience, I mean, maybe your
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
maybe
I will say beer makes everything better.
Maybe I'm watching too much media. I try to just read NPR news, and so that's where I get most of my information from. I feel like that's fairly unbiased. I'm sure there's a lot of people that would come at me from.
Yeah. I mean, we're going in a slightly different direction here, but what I do every morning is I open 3 to 4 different browser tabs for completely different viewpoints. Yeah. So I open up
BBC,
CNN, Fox News, BBC, and then you can kind of triangulate, you know, what's going on, because everybody's selling their own story, their own outrage shit, and they're all just as full of shit, to be honest.
Well, it's crazy when you do that and you really start realizing that people are getting completely different versions of the same story. So like, you only do
I have
one
friends
source.
from both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a centrist libertarian. You know, we can go into, you know, well, I get too much into politics, but. Like, I have, like, my mom, who's very much a left-wing person, and, like, my best friend, I'm a wedding officiant, whom I, married him and his wife, and he's, like, a right-wing person, and neither one of them would ever vote for a person that has, like, the other, like, an R or a D on after their name, and they tend to get their information from one side of the thing, and I'm like,
so how do we fix it?
Well, having conversations like these, and that's... To be honest with you, I don't have an ultimate fix. I think it's all about building community and having conversations and building bridges. I mean, I write songs. So I wrote a song in Mississippi called Brother's Keeper. That's in my upcoming record. And Stick of Dead Prez has a feature on it, and like this blues guy from Chicago is playing on it, and it kind of spreads the message of like, let's fucking, you know, talk about this and be united. To be honest with you, I don't think it's as simple a problem as say like, here's what the solution is.
Yeah, but you gotta have conversations and like this, like you said, and be willing to talk and actually compromise on things, and you know, like look at it from a let's fix this problem. What are the options? Not like throwing stuff out the window just because it doesn't fit your viewpoint.
Totally. Yeah. And to be honest with you, like I lived in California. I lived in San Francisco, and where it's predominantly left, you know, Democrat.
Right.
And then moving to Texas, it's easy for me to see how there is this, you know, how people in Texas and in the South don't feel like people in the coastal cities understand them at all. And I don't think they don't. And I don't think they try. So, or many of them don't try. They like to say they do.
I mean, I think that's the problem on both sides, you know, like
sure.
they don't.
Yeah, I don't think it's, but my point is that you hear people are taking not as much action as they think they are, and trying to understand the other side.
No, 100% agree.
I just worry that so much of it's kind of what you're talking about. It's just clickbait, and it's like, well, when your whole media is run essentially by, you know, the media companies needing to stay in business, so taking these polarizing views, it's like, how are you ever supposed to get objective, actual, you know, fair news out there that's balanced?
Ask me questions. Well, but I don't. But that's,
I know, but it's like
actually a big part of it is
PBS doesn't do clickbait, so they don't get the views. You know.
Well, a big part of it is the solution probably doesn't go through, you know, listening to the media. It's about having conversations like these. It's about people every day listening.
For sure, but I mean, at some point, don't you think you have to get some kind of platform or forum out there that does do that?
Sure.
That's bigger.
Yeah, and I think there are people, but I think yes, it's a constant force that you're fighting. And no, I don't have the answers. All I'm trying to say is that
No.
looking for me, this project is a way to seek truth and a way to seek stories and show how people really. I've interviewed people from both sides of the political spectrum and all different types of businesses and places, and they're people are way more fucking similar than they think they are.
Right. No, I can definitely probably say that.
Yeah.
So.
And this is an amazing country. I mean, I'm a naturalized citizen, and this place is unbelievable. The opportunities we have here. We're a little crazy,
For sure.
but at the same time, we're awesome.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an awesome country. Every
Yeah.
time I go around, I'm just
If it wasn't
floored.
crazy, it wouldn't be worth living, right?
Yeah, and it's actually my good friend. We are getting way far off.
We
the small
are,
business
we
thing,
are.
but this is fun. This is fun. This is what this is
what editing
yeah.
is for.
No, we're not editing any of
Oh,
this shit.
damn.
Are you kidding me? This is my show, and we're gonna do it. But my buddy just went to Europe and lived there for 2 months, and he came back and he's like, "Yeah, man, like it's cool over there, but it's everything's so orderly and so clean, and there's less entropy and there's less chaos,
Right.
which leads to less creativity and less
Right.
other things." So people forget the fact that we're crazy has some negative things for sure. However, the fact that two guys like you can take this idea of like, hey, we're gonna start something fucking awesome, and we're gonna make it look cool and sound cool, and people are gonna drink our beer because they identify with like our brand of cool, and you're able to take it 5 years in, and I am very confident you'll be able to continue to succeed beyond this. That's special. That's awesome. That's unique, and that's America. That's what this is about.
You just took that full circle. That was good. No, I agree completely. My whole thing with Europe is, I love Europe, but that's the exact feeling I get when I go over there. I'm like, oh, this is,
Neat.
this is what's so cool about America. It's such a contrast that you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you get so many cultures coming together here, and you get so many different viewpoints, and you get so much mingling, and it's not so stoic almost.
Yeah.
Europeans.
Well,
probably
Stoic
won't.
is cool. I was
I'm not
listening
saying
to
it's not.
Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying it's there's a lot of ideas that come out of America, and that's what's awesome about it. So anyways, back on track.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are some you guys have, I'm sure, a very wacky audience in a best possible way. So what are some of the oddest and wackiest things that you've seen like happen with your brand and your product?
Oh man, I don't. My personal favorite is we have a girl who created an Instagram profile where she just eats Doritos, and she loves our beer, and so there's a lot of it's really not anything in particular, but it's just we get a lot of tags that are just like her just like eating Doritos in different situations, and she's very calculated about what she does, and it's very entertaining. But
Nice.
well, I mean, we get a lot of kind of off the wall stuff like that. That's just super fun and out there that we were never expecting.
What's her username?
Doritos girl, I think.
Doritos Girl on Instagram.
Didn't she have to
something
change
like
it
that.
because Doritos got mad?
Yeah,
at
I think
her?
she wound up spelling it kind of a little off because,
But yeah, we get a
You'd
lot
think
of.
Doritos would want that.
You would think.
yeah, you would
but
think so
Frito-Lay
because
would,
like
yeah.
she does great stuff, but
We get a lot of like high mountain, jumping in a cold lake naked or skiing naked.
yeah, we got a ton of all kinds of kind of somewhat
stuff I used to do in college.
college stuff, running around, jumping into stuff essentially naked. We get a lot of that sort of thing. All kinds of goofy stuff.
That's
It's-
awesome. I mean,
it's-
all that stuff amplifies, the
Yeah.
message of having fun, which is what you guys are all about, right?
Right. So, just a smorgasbord of stuff.
That's awesome. What would you say is your number one piece of advice or lesson that you've learned for people who are maybe in your situation 5 years ago, who are thinking about starting something that don't know whether they should or how to do it? What would you say to them?
I mean, it sounds cliche, but I mean, don't take no as a final answer. I mean, you just gotta look for a different way to do it. It's pretty crushing the first time we heard no from the banks, and we're like, oh shit, how are we going to do this? Like, there goes our dream kind of thing, and you gotta take a step back and look at it from a different angle, and hindsight being 2020, they were probably right. We needed to start or look at it from a different way, and so it's no's not a no. It's just you gotta figure something else out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Cool.
I don't really have anything to contribute there.
Yeah, no worries.
It's
Can you just think of a crisis, something like a time when things went really wrong, and you're like, oh shit, what do we do, and what did you do about it?
There's been a few times where things have gone somewhat wrong. Luckily, none of them have been, catastrophes by any means. But I mean, we've, like growth has been a struggle for us. Because we don't have deep pockets, and we're not well funded. So the growth we've experienced has been tough to keep up with. We've maxed out our personal credit cards. To keep up with that.
That's like,
there's been times where it's like, one little thing slips here, like we've leveraged everything our life savings, our, pretty much everything. So it gets a little hairy there from time to time. And there's been a few times where like we've miscalculated, misjudged what we thought a product would do. We did draft for a little while early on, and it was a whole nother ballgame. Like we weren't prepared for it. So we kind of had to pull back on that number.
So you don't do draft anymore?
No, we just do cans.
Okay. What? Tell me more about that. What's the difference?
Well, it's, like in today's society, or like, the bar, it's a rotating tap handle scenario. Outside of your Coors and your Budweiser, PBR, everything else rotates through. And, our can and our brand is so visual, and it pops, and, getting that in a pint glass, is different. You have to put a lot more effort into it. If
I bet you PBR and Lone Star and all that do a lot better in cans than they do in.
I don't know.
They do sell a lot of draft though,
Right.
but they have 100 years behind them of
Well,
sales, and
then you throw
That's 20 times what you do.
exactly, and so you kind of get them in there, and they have that permanent tap handle. And,
PBR had a renaissance though. PBR for a long time didn't sell shit.
Yeah, they did back in the 90s. They kind of had a big renaissance.
Yeah, and there's what was that I heard? I heard that the number one beer in America in 1975 was I think Schlitz.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't know that.
Yeah, and then God, I'm gonna mess
something
this up.
like
It's
that,
gonna
though,
be
yeah.
something
I was
like
gonna
that.
say it would make sense coming out of the kind of Midwest out there.
Yeah. And then things kind of come and go.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Why Livingston? Tell me more about why did you pick Livingston as a place to? It's really cool. As I was driving from Bozeman, I saw a sign that said where bull riders meet artists. And I was like, man, I like this town. I gotta spend more time. I'm only going there to do one interview. I gotta go back. I gotta go back to Bozeman. But it's kind of cool though.
It is, but yeah.
Well, I think it.
You put yourself in the shoes of the Chamber of Commerce. You got to do something, right?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
But
we started in Bozeman, and our move to Livingston kind of just, I don't know, like kind of happened randomly. It's just a little bit over the hill.
It was not random for me.
What do you mean?
I was just burned out of Bozeman, so.
Why is that?
Bozeman's just it's becoming really big, and I'm just kind of a smaller town person, so I still love going over there and stuff, but I just kind of was I worked for the Forest Service over here right when I was out of high school for a couple of years, and I've just kind of been wanting to get over. It's slower pace for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
And office space is cheaper over here.
Yeah. Well, it's cheaper, and it's kind of slower pace of life, which I dig.
Cool. There you go. Find what you love and let it kill you, right?
Exactly.
Charles Bukowski.
Is that Charles Bukowski?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. That sounds like something he'd say. I've only read his books that don't say things like that. I don't understand how this guy was ever popular, because he's
He's fucking
He's
crazy.
a whole nother conversation.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, Charles. Yeah, I don't even know that we have the room to get into
No,
Charles
we
Bukowski
don't.
here.
There's a reason. Who wrote that song about him? Modest Mouse wrote a song about him. You heard that song?
No.
Oh, it's super cool. It's just called Bukowski.
Okay.
You should check it out. Yeah. I read Women I was like, all right.
Yeah.
Ever read that book?
Probably a long time ago. I was into him when I was like 22.
Yeah, he's interesting.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, he's a guy. I mean, Mark Manson wrote a great book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
I want to read that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. I just finished it.
Is it about him?
No, but it starts with Bukowski explaining Bukowski saying, like, you know, basically the guy just, you know, he never pretended to be anything but what he was.
Right.
He was like an alcoholic, womanizer, asshole, and he just, I mean, not to advocate that, you know, but that's what he was, and he found his audience doing that.
Yeah.
So you have to find, you know, the audience for what you are and who you know, what you do.
Right.
But yeah, God, this has been an interesting podcast. We've gone a lot of different directions.
Yeah.
It's like small business philosophical stories and literature.
Well, this morning you really missed it because Chad.
I don't know if we need to go.
Yeah, let's go there.
Sometimes I like to just mess with Chad.
Yeah.
I don't remember why I was thinking this, but for some reason I was like, okay, I have no idea what spurred this thought this morning, but I was like, okay, if the Earth somehow got in and out of the rotation around the sun.
Yeah.
Now, this is a question to you.
We'd last about a day, maybe.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Because
Okay,
I
sorry,
didn't
what's
think
the
so.
rest, what's the rest
So-
of the question?
That's pretty much it.
So let's just say for some reason we got knocked out of orbit or
Yeah.
something, and we just started floating away from the sun through space.
Yeah.
Like, how long? Like, what would how long would humanity last? Would it last?
I'm not an expert on this, but I'd be amazed if the answer was. I would say it'd be somewhere between a day and a month.
You don't think we have the technology to
No fucking way.
to use?
What,
'cause, I
like,
mean,
what's
we
under
still got
Nevada?
fossil
What's
fuels.
under freaking Area 51? They have got whole cities under there, right? Don't they? Like most
But
people would
think
probably
about-
die, but wouldn't like the government like be like, all right, we're gonna like drill down to the magma in the earth and we're gonna heat ourselves with this and we're gonna
That
figure
sounds
out
like
a
a
way.
great book. I'd read that book.
Yeah. Well, this
you
was
know,
the conversation that we had for 2 hours this morning.
That sounds
Which
amazing.
is why we didn't get a lot done today.
And now you're doing a podcast where you're talking about it, which is compounding the problem.
We finally decided that we're like, oh, we need to figure out a way to talk to
should write that book.
Tyson DeGeis or
I
whatever.
mean, use
about
your
it.
slow pace of life in Livingston to sit down, have a couple cold snacks. And
I already figured it out. I think we've
what's
got.
your answer?
I think they'd like drill down to the core, like to the magma of the earth, and they'd use that heat to heat like.
Do you know how fucking far the magma of the earth is?
Yeah, but you don't have to drill that far to start getting the heat from it, and then you could turn that into energy.
No, it's really far. So you should Google how the deepest hole in the world. It's in the Ukraine, or no, not Ukraine. So somewhere in the former Soviet Union.
I thought it's in South Dakota. Maybe that's
Well,
just
once
in
you
the United
get
States.
like below the frost level, it stays about 60 degrees constant. So I don't know how that would affect you if you're out in space, but you know, I think there's enough.
You have to remember that.
There's enough coal. Like if you lost half of the or 90% of the population, there's enough fossil fuels.
There's another way to approach this, which is when you're looking for planets that could hold life, there's something called a habitable
The
zone.
Goldilocks zone.
And that is very, very narrow, and there's not that much. So it depends on how much you get knocked off orbit. But there's a lot of things that happen.
But you can melt water, you can generate electricity, you could grow plants.
Right,
with
where we're
artificial
at,
lights.
couldn't you, grow plants with artificial lights? If you could find a power source, couldn't you just kind of tumble through space? And you don't need a sun anymore.
Well, so think about this. Actually, that's actually.
It wouldn't be a very fun life.
No,
movie,
nobody is advocating this. It's just a theoretical thing.
The movie The Martian kind of explores it, right? Which is what it would be like to have do things like that in a place like Mars. Because eventually,
well, that Matt Damon survived like what, a year out there?
That's true. Yeah, but yeah, just enough to get back and barely catch a flight back.
True.
But
I didn't actually watch that.
You should read it. It's fucking amazing.
Okay, I'll read it.
Yeah.
I'm not a big Matt Damon fan.
Well, he's not in the book.
Well, I know. That's why I said I'll read it. That's why I said I'll read it. That's why I didn't watch it.
Matt Damon, not in the book.
He was awesome. Great in Good Will Hunting.
What?
He really was.
I'm going to make an attempt to pull this back into some more of a realm of. I mean, this is amazing, but I mean, we're only 2. This is I guess 1.5 cold snacks in. I wonder what this conversation would sound like. 5 or 6 cold snacks in.
That'd be probably
one way to find out.
Yeah, exactly.
probably worth broadcasting. Anyway, sorry.
You guys should start your own podcast.
Yeah, that'd be a great time.
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
Once every couple of weeks, do the Montucky Cold Snacks podcast.
Just put a recorder out Thursday mornings and
we
see
could have
what
Caleb
comes out.
moderate it.
Yeah, and then have go to the mountain, record people talking about your stuff. Yeah, there you go. See, this is
Brilliant.
That's a great idea, actually. I like that.
Done. As long as you mention Small Business War Stories once.
We'll do that
every
for sure.
time.
Awesome, man. How many people do you guys employ now?
Full time, there's just 3 of us, but we have market reps in most of our or not most of our markets, but at least part-time help.
Cool.
A lot of friends or friends of friends.
As you start to hire more and grow, which I'm confident you will, how do you think about hiring people who fit your culture, who kind of see your vision for what you want to do? I mean, you guys have something really awesome. I don't exactly know to what degree you know this, and I think you kind of do, and I think you kind of don't, which is perfect because it keeps you hungry. But you guys have something awesome. So I'm excited for you guys. As you grow, how are you gonna find people that fit your culture, and how are you gonna hire?
It's tough. It's kind of something that we a little bit struggle with, or debate about, because we don't have a lot of time to really sort through 700 resumes.
Yeah.
So right now we've kind of just been sourcing it from internal connections, and
that kind of really helps us keep that culture. We know them, or somebody knows them, and it's a lot. We know who they are as people, and and it's easy, but you can. It's a double-edged sword as well, because if it doesn't work out, then you have that relationship there that you also have to maintain.
But I think that's kind of one of the things that actually we've met so many cool people through, random things like Instagram that we can tell get our culture, and so we'll reach out to them, and there's probably 4 or 5 people that we're in pretty regular contact with that are just people that drink our beer. And I'm not saying we'll hire them, but we have opened,
people that we think are potential.
Yeah, and some of them have opened some doors for us, and so it's interesting. It's very, I don't know. That's how I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, we definitely want to keep that small company feel, family feel, no matter what we do. So that's kind of the way we're approaching it right now.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really excited about you guys' success. I think you guys are gonna kick ass. So where can people find you? What is your website, and what are your Instagram and Facebook properties?
MontuckyColdSnacks.com is probably the easiest way. There's a locations finder there. There's a store for all our swag.
All the merchandise. You guys have some awesome merch. That's some cool looking stuff.
Yeah, and then outside of that, it's go ask your local watering hole for us, and hopefully we're there. We're trying to get into some of the larger retail outlets, but we're in a lot of the independent ones in the markets we're in. So
awesome. Yeah. Montucky Cold Snacks, where we talk about what would happen if the Earth were to be knocked off orbit.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Hey, pleasure to meet you. You guys were awesome.
Cheers. Nice chatting with you, dude.
Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.